Hello, and welcome to math. We are going to have a little lesson today on fractions. It should hopefully be mostly review for most of you, but I want to make sure that I've covered all of this because it's been a few weeks since we were able to go over fractions in person. And even if it's new or review, you can watch this video over and over as many times as you need. So today we're just going to start with some remembering about basic fraction concepts, and then we'll do a little adding and subtracting with like denominators. We're going to start out pretty easy here. So understanding fractions concepts, a few things to review. You can share this with your family, and this is really good information for anybody who might be helping you with fractions too. So think about sharing equally. Whenever you're doing fractions, especially word problems, they're usually talking about sharing. The numerator is the number on the top. The denominator is the number on the bottom. Memory tip, D for denominator. D is for down. Look down at the bottom. Like with all math, experiencing the concept is best for learning, so use objects and share them. Pizza is always popular. Really anything round very easily can be divided into fractions. So if you are doing a baking lesson, this would be a great time. Discuss fractions anytime you see them in your real life. Anywhere out in the real world where you see fractions, talk about the fractions, and that will help you be more and more comfortable with them. Again, baking is a fantastic place to work on your fraction skills. So looking through a couple words that you might not remember, equivalent fractions, and in sign, remember it's equivalent fractions. So equivalent fractions, they have the same value, the same meaning, they just have slightly different names. Just like you could call me Mrs. Delaney, or you could call me Jody Lynn, or whatever possible version of my name you want to come up with, it's still always referring to me. The me hasn't changed, even if the name you use does. So for example, if I start with 1/2, it is an equivalent fraction to 2/4, which is also equivalent to 4/8. They're just simply the same thing, but with different names. So if we look at pizzas, 1/2 is going to be the same as 2/4. All I did was cut that piece one more time. And it's the same as 4/8. I still have the same amount. It's just that I have put an additional set of cuts in there. So 1/2 is equal to 2/4 is equal to 4/8. Technically, there is an infinite number of equivalent fractions. You give any fraction in the whole world, technically there's an infinite number of other equivalent names you can give it. So just to continue our quick vocab review, a fraction is any part of a group, number, or whole. One circle has been cut in half. A half is a fraction. We write 1/2 as 1/2. Again, this is the numerator. It is the number of the parts we have, the number of pieces. The bottom is the denominator. It is the kind of fraction that I'm dealing with, the denomination or the size, the kind of fraction. It is the total number of parts that the whole is divided into. So a fraction is part of a whole. Now these are the kinds of fractions that you might hear or you might see in your work. A proper fraction is one where the numerator is less than the denominator. So 1/4, 2/3, 7/10. The fraction is less than 1/2. An improper fraction, which you'll probably hopefully remember from school, I make a joke about it would be silly for a 2-year-old to try and give a piggyback to a 5-year-old. That would be improper. So here, an improper fraction is where the numerator is larger than or equal to the denominator. So for example, if I have 4/4 that would equal 1/2, it is still considered an improper fraction. Here I am seeing the number 5/3. It's more than 1/2, so I'm actually showing more than one of these shapes divided and shaded. 7/4. So if you can remember when dealing with improper fractions, this just tells you the total number of those pieces. A mixed number is when they've basically just glued all of those whole numbers together and given you a mixed number. It is a mixture of whole numbers and fractions. So it is a whole number with a proper fraction. For example, here you can see 2 and 2/3 or 2 and 3/4. You will need to be able to go back and forth between these different forms of fractions with a lot of the work that you're going to be doing. So let's go ahead and do a little bit of practice together. So what I would like you to do is whenever I get to a question, I would really like you to pause the video. And then when you pause it, think about what you would answer if I were to call on you in class. And then when you continue the video, you can see if your answer was correct. And remember, even if it isn't, there are no mistakes, only changes, and it's perfectly normal for people to get problems wrong here and there. So here I have a problem where it's asking me to find and circle 1/4 of the cats. First, I have to know how many I have. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. Now, I can do this a bunch of different ways. And when you're dealing with math, remember, there are lots of different good strategies that will get you to the end. So one strategy is I just count out to the 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, and every fourth one, 1, 2, 3, 4, I circle. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. That's one strategy. I can also look at the number 16. I can divide 16 by 4. 4 is going to go into 16 exactly 4 times. So I know that I'm going to get 4 out of 16. Now, perhaps, oh, I forgot to grab Kleenex. Perhaps I like having my collection all together. I could say, oh, 4 out of 16. It doesn't matter which 4 I circle. How many cats did I circle? 4 cats. Please remember to use your labels. Write a fraction that describes the group of cats you circled that is equivalent to 1/4. 1/4 of 16 equals 4 out of 16. So 4 out of 16 is an equivalent fraction to 1/4. Each whole rectangle below is 1. Write a fraction inside each part. So here I can see this section down there. It's my biggest section. And I can see that it has cut this rectangle into half. This one is 1/4. That's already given. And then if I want to know what these fractions are, I can look to see what this would be cut in half because this is an equivalent. Or I could imagine what if I cut the whole thing into that many pieces? I would have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So each of these is 1/8. So pause the video right now and see if you can fill in this one just using scratch paper in your own home. I will pause a moment and then continue the video. All right, welcome back. You hopefully were able to see that this will be 1/3, 1/6, and this over here is also 1/6, or you could have written, or I'm sorry, 1/3, or you could have written 2/6. So either which way, you're going to end up with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 sixths total if you imagined cutting it equally like this. So 1/3, 1/6, and this section down here is also 1/3, or you could have noticed that it was equivalent to 2/6. All right, very good. Let's go on to the next page. These are quite frequently the kinds of problems that we would have had you do in earlier grades. So I just want to review them very quickly. Shade 1/2 of each circle, complete the fractions. So this part should be pretty familiar, 1/2. Now, if I have 1/2, how many fourths? Pause the video if you need to. All right, 1, 2, 2/4. Here I have 1/2. Pause the video if you need to. 1, 2, 3, 3/6. Shade 1/3 of each rectangle, complete the fractions. So I'm shading 1/3. Now this will help me find equivalent fractions. Again, pause the video if you need, and then I will answer both of these. All right. If I have 1/3, that equals 1, 2/6. And here, if I have 1/3, that equals 1, 2, 3/9. Now on this one, you can take a moment, do your own sketch on your own scratch paper at home, and then make your own. Shade however much of this that you want, and then you can write your own fractions in there. Since everybody can come up with their own fractions, I will not be correcting that one because I don't know what amazing fraction work you came up with. We have one more page that we're going to go over with this lesson, and we're just going to do a little bit more review with fractions and mixed numbers. So I want you to imagine that I have out our fraction pieces from the classroom. Here I can count how many fourths there are. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. If you remember, a unit fraction is what I get whenever I have one of any kind of fraction. So the numerator of any unit fraction is always the number 1. There's no other numerator for a unit fraction. So I have a chain of unit fractions. 1/4 plus 1/4 plus 1/4 plus 1/4 plus 1/4 plus 1/4. And I got a total of 6/4. So each of these is a unit fraction, and when I am adding, I'm basically just adding a chain of unit fractions. Now here I ended up with 6/4. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So I had how many? Oh, I suppose I got ahead of myself there. There were 6, which means 6/4. Here I still have 6/4, but when I write it as a mixed number, I see I have 1 whole and I have 2/4 left. Now, if you wanted to be extra smart and point out that this is a half, you could write the equivalent fraction 1/2. They are both accurate. Now over here I have another chain of unit fractions. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. What is the fraction? Pause if you need to. 9/5. Over here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Pause if you want to on the video. I have 1 whole and 1, 2, 3, 4/9. So 1 and 4/9. I'll go ahead and give you a moment here to pause the video again. Try the last two on your scratch paper on your own, and then we'll come back and correct them together. All right. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7/3. The fraction then is 7/3. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7/3. I have 1, 2 whole numbers, and 1/3 left over. All right, very good. Review of fractions and mixed numbers. On the back side, I just want to go over a couple fraction stories. Now at home, you are welcome to use, as it suggests here, pennies, counters, draw pictures. on any of the math homework that you get, even if the thing that you turn in now is on the computer, you are always welcome and encouraged to use scratch paper to come up with your answers. So I will read the question, give you a moment to pause, and then give you the answer. Elizabeth bought a dozen eggs. She dropped her bag on the way home, and 2/3 of the eggs broke. How many of the eggs broke? All right. First, you have to know how many eggs are in a dozen. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. There are 12 in a dozen. Now, she dropped her bag, and 2/3 of the eggs broke. Now, there again are many, many ways that you can solve this. This happens to be the way that my brain wanted to solve it today. I see that I can divide this into groups of 3. 2/3 of the eggs broke. How many of them? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 8 eggs, which honest to goodness, I would just sit down and cry right there because you all know how much I love eggs. And if all of my eggs broke, that would be traumatizing to me and I would be very, very sad. So moving on. Number 2, Katie mowed 3/4 of the lawn before lunch. What fraction of the lawn did she have to finish after lunch? Pause if you need to. Well, I know that if she already has completed 3/4 of the yard, that means she only has 1/4 of the lawn left. Number 3, Johnny lives 1 mile from school. One day he walked half of the way to school. When he remembered he had to return home to get a book. When he finally made it to school, how far did he walk in all? In all is a very important part of this. I'll erase that so you can see a little bit better. All right, pause the video and then come back. Okay, so I'm going to use a number line for this one. He walks half of the way to school. So he makes it 1/2 because it's only 1 mile, right? But then he has to go home again. So I'm going to try to squeeze this in here. So that means he went another half. And then he's going to go all the way to school this time. And I've kind of run out of room here. Hopefully you can see this okay. So 1/2 plus 1/2 plus 1. Well, if I have a half plus a half, I know I've got a whole. Plus 1, 1, 2. 2 miles in all. That one might have been a bit trickier. All right, number 4. Pause the video. All right. Sheridan made 4 trays of cookies. She took 2 trays to school for her classmates. She took 3/4 of a tray of cookies to her teacher. How many trays of cookies did Sheridan have left? So she took a total of 4, all right? So I am going to just draw out 4 trays. I'm going to imagine these are my trays. She took 2 trays to school for her classmates. So these 2 trays went to school for her classmates. She took 3/4 of a tray of cookies to her teacher. Good kid. And that means that of this, she only has 1/4 left. So how many did she have left? This whole tray and 1/4 of this tray. That means we have another mixed number. 1 and 1/4 of the trays. And a very happy teacher. This is just an excellent kid. All right, last one. I'm not going to go ahead and do the addition and subtraction review on the bottom, but you're welcome to if you'd like. I'll give you a moment to pause the video, then we'll come back. All right. Jackson needed 2 pints of milk for his recipe. If he had 1 gallon of milk in the refrigerator, how much did he use? All right, first thing, yes, I know it looks like pints. It's actually pronounced pints. No, I don't know why that is. And 1 gallon equals 4 quarts. 1 quart equals 2 pints. This is why you should probably just be baking because it'll help you learn all of these measurements. So he needed 2 pints of milk for his recipe. He has 1 gallon of milk in the refrigerator. Now, for those of you who have used Gallon Man and remember all of this, that is grand. If you haven't and you don't remember, that's okay. Here's my gallon of milk, right? Now, this gallon can be divided into 4 quarts. And each quart is divided into 2 pints. So I'm going to end up with 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I am going to need 8 pints to make 1 gallon. So that means if he only used 2 pints of milk for this recipe, this much is gone. We still have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 of the original 8. So I could say he has 6/8 of a gallon. I could also reduce that and go back to fourths and say he has 3/4 of a gallon. Those are equivalent fractions. They both mean the same amount of milk. All right. I will have you work on 2 different attachments here. One is a simple worksheet reviewing how to add denominators that are the same. And the other one is how to subtract fractions where the denominator is the same. So all you really need to do is download addition of fractions, put in your answers, check, because I left the answers at the bottom. I want you to check your work. Always in our Montessori questions, we check our own work. Then you're going to upload that to Teams. Then you can download your subtraction, do all the fractions subtraction, and then upload that to Teams as well. So there are 2 different pages with this assignment. Just as a quick review, when we are adding and subtracting with like denominators, it is very similar to what we were doing here with the chains of unit fractions. So if I have 2/4 plus 1/4, I am imagining that I have 2/4 and I am adding 1 more fourth. I don't need to do anything to this 4 down here. I'm not changing what kind of fraction I'm doing. That will remain the same. I'm just counting how many I have. 1, 2, 3. Oh, I have 3/4. Now, again, if you would like to use, pennies, counters, drawing pictures to help you, please do that. When you upload your work, if you have a great scratch paper that you want me to see, please just take a photo of it and you can send that to me as well. So you have addition of fractions and subtraction of fractions with like denominators. I bet you'll do an amazing job and I look forward to seeing your answers. Have a good day.